Willkommen zum Reinsurance Podcast, live aus Baden-Baden. Wir sind hier für die jährliche Rückversicherungskonferenz, wo sich führende Mitglieder der Branche versammeln, um über die neuesten Trends, Herausforderungen und Innovationen zu sprechen. Bleiben Sie dran für exklusive Einblicke direkt von der Konferenz. Welcome back to the Reinsurance Podcast in Baden-Baden 2025. Can you believe it? Guys, welcome back. You've been on the show last year where you gave us a bit of an intro for those not already inducted in your space. But could you maybe this year dive into some of the really exciting things that have been happening? But before that, we should probably ask, how are you and how's your Baden going?
Nice and easy. We've had a couple of meetings. We definitely had time to sleep, so we're absolutely fine. We've been totally backed out. It's been lovely this year. And Izzy's great, our marketing lady. She always sorts us out to make sure we don't have to move too far. But no, it's been a great Baden. And
we've been full on.
Very full on.
Full on. I mean, I think we had basically half an hour break in 2 days.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, okay, so it's worth you coming here is what the message to those back home.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's not a holiday. It's the most intense week of your lives.
Yeah, this is worse renewal season. Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, what are the big trends happening in the market? I know there's been some names that have drawn attention in the press beyond our industry, over the States, for example. But where do you want to start?
Yeah, I think there's definitely been some noise around first brands over the last couple of weeks. That's something that I think when the press initially were talking about it, there was a suggestion that there was going to be lots of claims in our market. There hasn't been. Like the market was well aware of what was happening and started to take action about a year ago. And as far as we're aware, people have come away from that fairly loss-free. Reinsurers certainly are not worried about it at all.
Wow. So where does that go? We're not to our space.
It's uninsured. I mean, we suspect, actually it's quite interesting because historically we would have seen these structures sitting within the banking industry. We think this is one of the first examples where private credit has really taken a step forward, and you see non-banking institution getting involved in things that maybe they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Having said that, the insurance industry is quite cautious of getting involved with private credit and non-banks institutions, so they've been able to, let's say, just avoid it or trade out of it. Yeah. So when everything comes out of the wash, we think there's going to be effectively a non-event.
Yeah. Super interesting. I'm going to ask a silly question. You know I don't know your space, so forgive me if it's off the wall. But we've got all these data centers, currently that's a big topic at the moment. Is that coming into your space as a conversation?
It is.
Go on, tell me about it, because I'm super curious. But
so data centers they are insured in the market. They tend to go to those insurers more in the Lloyd's space, who can cover longer tenors. Generally, you want specialists to be looking at those because you want to make sure that they're covering the entire lifespan of the deal and not just hoping that it gets refinanced and moved off the book. It's definitely, that's been something that the market probably 3 or 4 years ago really started to see, and the project finance experts sort of lapped up what they could and certainly turned down things that they didn't think made sense.
So the thing that I've been curious about is obviously seeing all of these data center financings in the time where the Magnificent Seven are obviously sort of doing more and more interestingly financed deals between each other. Is that something the insurance and reinsurance industry gets pulled into? Something that are we invited? Or because I know these firms have got so much money, do they need our capital as well? Or?
Not yet, seems to be the case.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think just when it comes to the slightly more complex structures, and if there are, like you said, circular financing, the quality, I think we said this last year, the quality of the underwriters in this market is pretty high. They will go into the details that are quite deep. So if they think there's at any point something that doesn't quite add up in the whole chain, not just the thing they're seeing, then they won't do it. There's no pressure on these underwriters to go write business that they think has got any questions around it.
Oh, good to hear.
I think one thing we keep on hearing repeatedly from both the insurers and the reinsurers is that given how much liquidity is in the system, they're seeing deals they would not have seen previously with creative structures, and there's a question of who's holding the risk. They're not doing it.
Interesting.
Because the assumption is this is similar situation as saw before the global financial crisis. These are potentially early warning signs that something is not quite right. People are doing things they shouldn't be doing. The market is quite good at holding back. I don't think they're going to write for top line. The market doesn't normally do that, especially given the longer nature tail of the business. They're not chasing the income just yet, so they're not going down that route. So I think the quality of underwriting will hold firm and avoid situations like that.
Yeah. But it's the management teams that sign off on allowing people to write credit could really easily say, we're just not doing it anymore. So the quality of the underwriting has to be really high. It's not like you could just say, well, it's not going to write property now. That would have a meaningful impact.
Yeah.
You could just stop writing credit tomorrow if you really had to. So the underwriters know they've got to have a really high standard.
Oh, brilliant. And I guess this feeds into another topic. I mean, first before we dive into talent, which is where I was going to take that, I'm relieved and reassured to hear that hopefully if there is a giant AI bubble and the world falls to pieces, the insurance and reinsurance industry will carry on, hopefully without too much of the backlash.
We'll be here next year again, regardless.
Again, the major things that catch people out are fraud, which are just things that they can't necessarily foresee, or if they're on a particularly long-term project for a particular sovereign and that sovereign has a downturn, generally then what will happen is that will just get kicked out to a longer term. So it doesn't mean that the market's going to fall away. It just means that they might have something on their books for a bit longer than they were expecting. So
you talked about the importance of, I would say wisdom is probably the word as much as anything else.
Is he calling us wise?
No, well,
Not us.
Look, how is the talent market in credit at the moment? Are we doing enough to get the right people in? Are people, in the right places?
Nowhere near. We would love to see way more people coming in from universities, from school leavers. I think the market and industry needs to be way more proactive when it comes to just going out there and finding people that may want to go into banking, don't understand that this is something that they can do. It's a problem across insurance generally. Obviously, we live in the credit world, so we understand the credit bit. The people that tend to apply for the jobs for us tend to be politics students or economic students, but we're definitely not getting a wide range of people, and I think that that's something that we just need to be doing more of. Ideally, you'd have one of us and other senior people going into universities to do an half-an-hour talk to people to say, have you thought about it as a career? And just simple things like that, really. I think we need to make sure that pipeline's there for people to come in.
Yeah. I think the other issue is, there's a big gap. So the baby boomers are coming to the end of their career. Yep. So you have a whole bunch of people in their late 50s and 60s who are going to retire. There's going to be a lot of experience basically being sucked out of the market. You have the age below the 30s and 40s, and then it drops very quickly. So one, we definitely need to build a pipeline for the youngsters coming straight from university, from school leavers. But I think also we should do a better job at proposing this as a second career, or if somebody wants to do a career shift from in their mid-20s or 30s, we can definitely get more lawyers in, more people with financial background, just generally from loss adjuster, lots of different things that could really benefit the market as a whole, because we just have so much business. I think the one thing you hear about the market is there's more clients, there's more contracts, there's more demand, everyone is stretched, there's not enough hours in a day. We can only work so many hours in a day. We have to get more talent, but also mature talent into the market. Don't know how to do that yet, but we'll figure it out.
And some of the more successful people that head up the teams, certainly in the London market, they've got banking backgrounds. They've come across as a second career, and they should be held up as a shining light of, look, this is what you could go and do, and isn't it interesting?
And I guess in a changing market, there's changing opportunity as well. You've probably got the established players, but how are MGAs affecting your space, is it?
It's the latest shiny toy in the market right now. It's quite interesting because credit, unlike other classes, the rating of the paper is paramount. So for you to be accepted by the original insured, you have to have quite a decent rated paper. There is a lot of MGAs opportunities floating on the market. There's a lot of reinsurers who are willing to back the MGAs. There's a lot of platform providers, information providers who are all there willing to back the MGAs. The one thing that we're really struggling with, let's put it this way, is finding the right paper, which is well enough rated with the right licensing.
Interesting.
This year alone, I think we looked at...
we've had 9 come across our desk. And
purely in credit.
Just purely in credit. And it's a... varying sizes, varying degrees of niche involved, and actually in the credit space, if you can find something that's a really nice niche, then that's the thing to back. But yes, it's finding that final piece of the jigsaw puzzle, which the market is struggling with. And okay, look, some people have made a success of it in the past. I think finding those people that have still got that talent to place that niche business, we should be supporting those as best we can.
It's interesting because you keep on hearing of insurance company looking for so-called structured solution propositions, which is, I'll offer you capacity across all these different MGA lines. But really, when you scratch the surface, they don't want to do lots of things. So it's finding that middle ground between what the insurance company looking to do in terms of diversify away from the existing portfolios, but also actually what's out there that is looking for capacity. And I don't think we quite cracked it just yet, but I think the next 12 months are going to be very interesting to see how MGAs come to forefront, especially in a soft market where that's the latest shiny toy everyone's trying to get across.
Yeah, makes sense. And how are market conditions, generally for you guys?
Soft. Very soft. I think there's, again, I said it last year, I've said it this year, that flight to quality. People are looking to write as good a portfolio as they can, that then is squeezing pricing. That's both on the insurance and on the reinsurance side. We've had 8 new players over the last 12 months. I think last year we stood here, this is the power of your podcast. We stood here last year and said, we need more reinsurers to come in. I think since then 8 new have joined. So I mean, it's all down to you, really.
Is there a commission I should be earning here? So
once we earn it, we'll pass it on. Absolutely.
Thank you.
But that has obviously created a softer market condition. Obviously, great for brokers in a certain sense because we can squeeze terms as we need to. But we are always thinking about how long term is this capacity going to be here for. You don't want to upset the leads because the leads are obviously they're very well established. They know what they're doing. Very really good. It's very much a lead follow market. But on the insurance side, there's the quality is still upheld. People still decline sort of 80% of what they see. But there's still growth.
But pricing is coming down. So, and what we're seeing is this is going to be another benign year. Right. So we're now looking at a 5-year period, really since 2020, where loss activity has been minimal. So we have a perfect storm of people not in the class looking at the results and going, that's really interesting, which is part of a wider push of, I need to diversify away from property and casualty into specialty. Specialty means different things to different people. Credit tends to fall into the specialty bucket. Fine, let's go for that. So you have fresh capacity coming into the market with clean books. At the same time, you have potentially too much capacity coming to the market that pricing goes down. And there is a natural lag in our class. So stuff which is written now at cheap pricing will become a loss in 2-3 years' time.
Not necessarily a loss, but it
will become could develop into a potential loss situation.
Oh God, we tanked the market.
So I think we're carefully watching the dynamics between potentially oversupply. This is what God thinks about me right now. We need to really walk a thin line between potentially providing too much capacity to the market while demand is not increasing at the same rates. So we're not seeing demand from the primary buyers increasing at the same capacity and speed as the supply coming in from the insurance side, which would just create a soft market cycle and all that comes with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess looking back over the last year and looking forwards a bit towards 2026, what have been the sort of macro factors driving demand or lack thereof?
Hard to say, really. I mean, it's such a multi-complex world that
can you sum up in one word? Uncertainty.
Massive words, uncertainty. Because actually, if you just looked at it as like ignoring the insurance bit, you look at the world and go, oh my God. But actually, the insurance bit is fine, and we think will continue to be fine so long as people hold discipline. So whilst there's way more uncertainty, that should actually help to sell it more to the front end clients. And so as long as people don't start writing stuff they don't understand, everything should still be okay for 26 as well. I don't think we're sat here thinking, oh my God, there's going to be a raft of claims next year. Now, we'll be studying next year and who knows. But that doesn't really jump out at us as something that we think the market's going to suffer from.
I mean, the one thing I think we're starting to see is just shift in buying patterns in a sense that on the back of global trading patterns changing, right, with what's going on in the world, we're seeing more, say, south to south trade. Right, we're seeing trade corridors opening up in new parts of the world, which were previously not insured. Because the insureds in these locations were not sophisticated buyers. So we're seeing much more activity in Asia. We're seeing much more activity in the GCC region. We're seeing more activity in Central Europe. US is quite well developed. Europe is quite well developed. So we're seeing, I wouldn't say necessarily a shift or an increase in the supply and the demand, but just a shift in where it's coming from.
And that's, I guess, one of the things that we can say concretely has been driven by the tariffs, even though they haven't necessarily landed in a particular place. The uncertainty, I guess, of...
Yes. And again, people trading in jurisdictions they're not familiar with, which carries an heightened implicit risk factor in it. So we are seeing increased demand. But again, I don't think it's demand it's a replacing demand rather than fresh demand on top of it. So the pie hasn't grown necessarily as much, but it's changing in shape.
That's super interesting. Oh, I realise I'm keeping you guys out here in the occasional bursts of rain, so I'm going to steer us towards some final thoughts perhaps. But as you look out to 2026, what's on your menu? What are you excited about? What are you wary of? Any final thoughts to leave our listeners with before we bid you farewell into the Baden-Baden meeting frenzy once more?
I think if somebody can solve that paper issue, then there's going to be a glut of new business come to the market that will meet a niche. If we can get people to go into universities and start talking about this marketplace, then we should have a nice pipeline of people coming through. And for next year,
the one thing we didn't touch upon, but does kind of niggle me in the back of my brain, is a potential systemic risk on the back of a cyber issue.
Interesting. Yeah.
We haven't quite figured out that risk, but in our class, cyber is implicitly covered. Right, so it's not excluded, it's implicitly included. There could be a situation where there's an attack on a nation's infrastructure, which then could lead to a systemic failure across various industries, various locations, various supply chains. That's one thing that I think the market is sort of aware of in the background, but is kind of ignoring for the time being. Now, I'm not trying to scare anyone and shying away from it, but it's something we should just be conscious of. As an AI becoming more and more relevant, it will develop very quickly. Geopolitics, there's new wars, there's old wars. I think that's just continuing being the case as before. It's going to be another good year, we think, generally. Market is holding, capacity is there, pricing is holding up. Unless something catastrophic happen, it's going to be a relatively benign year for the market in 26. Having said that, let's see what happens.
I love the twist in the tail you added at the end. They got a door handle question or something, don't they? As you, just as you're about to leave and say it's all going to be fine, we get another thing to think about. Super interesting though. I don't want you to leave with just that thought, but funnily enough, somebody did say to me earlier today that given what we've seen over the last few years of how nation states have been particularly punished when something goes wrong by the markets these days, and obviously we're in a situation where the borrowing costs of nations is particularly high. Any thoughts on that before we wrap up, and how maybe governments are interacting with this whole credit world?
We're seeing a heightened loss activity on sovereigns. There's a few sovereign defaults that we're seeing in the last 12 months or so. It's probably not to the point that people are worried just yet. I think there's just too many moving factors at the moment. Trying to second guess which is the next domino stone to fall, it's anyone's guess. But people are aware of...
Your point on government support, obviously COVID was not a bad year for the credit market because it was fine, they stepped in. Were it to be a larger, more systemic, more global issue, then is the money still there to step in? That I think is one of the things that we look at and go, that could change next time round for the next big thing. But stop trying to scare people.
I think if you go full circle, I think what we've seen in the last few years is really the rise of private credit. So you have a move away from the institutions which I don't want to say caused the GFC, but were instrumental in the way it played out. I think governments have been quite clever in moving large systemic institutions away from these more dangerous lending. Private equities all over the place, private credit. There's lots of money floating around the system. Still also liquidity. We can see it in our industry as well, right? Liquidity is coming in, capital is cheap still, interest rates coming down. All these different factors. If I knew what's going to happen next year, I would not be doing this, right? I'll be betting on something. Having said all that, it's a slow-moving market. Discipline is still firm. Underwriters know what they're doing. No one is being silly just yet. So I think we'll be fine.
Where there's risk, there's opportunity.
100%.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much. I'm sure people will be replaying this one over and over and just trying to do the maths in their head about where the world might be by the time we meet next. But thank you again. Have a great rest of Baden-Baden and see you both soon.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for having us.